Hey everyone, Rachel here. I'm a pattern maker and tech designer in the fashion industry, and today I wanted to do a video about what exactly a pattern maker is and how you can, a tech designer, not a pattern maker, what exactly a tech designer is and how you can become one. What are some good skills and traits of a good tech designer? What are some things you could work on if you're currently a tech designer and you want to move forward in your career? And maybe you're just interested in fashion in general and want to have a better understanding of what tech design is and how they work and what their training is. So tech designers are basically, I like to say, when people ask me what I am, I like to say that I'm a garment engineer. And the reason I say that is because designers will give me a sketch and I have to figure out how do I turn that into reality, which I think is actually pretty tricky. And it's the reason that I wanted to become a technical designer to begin with. It's because, to me, sure, there are great designs and there are people who are really skilled at designing and coming up with new and original ideas. But for me, as someone who appreciates a well-made product, the thing that I love is something that is executed well. So people have a lot of great ideas, but very, very few people execute them in a way that is elegant, that is both or design oriented and functional. And I think a great example of a company that combines form and function well is like Apple, right? So they make beautiful products that are great to look at. They're great consumer products, but they also work really well. And that's really unique. There's a reason that Apple is the company that it is today. And that's why I wanted to become a tech designer, because you could have the most beautiful pair of pants, but if they don't fit you well, if they don't make you feel great, then those pants are worthless, right? And if when you open those pants, you don't see beautiful seam details and very nice construction, then again, you're going to say, I don't really like these. They're bulky. It doesn't feel, when I open them up, they look cheap. You know, when we spend our money on things, our hard-earned money, we want something that looks and feels great. And so I think that's the importance of a great tech designer. I wanted to do this video too because, especially in the wake of COVID and in recent times, tech design has been a career field that when I first entered it in 2008, it was fairly high paying, and increasingly wages have gone lower and lower for this particular field. And I think part of that is that people don't really understand what tech design is. They don't know why it's important. And I run into a lot of brands, people who reach out to me as now that I'm an experienced tech designer and pattern maker. I get brands reaching out to me saying, you know, we actually got rid of our tech design department and now everything's a mess and we need help cleaning it up. And, you know, we need someone to make sense of everything that's gone crazy. So the important role that tech design runs is they are the liaison between design and the factory. So without a tech designer, design is working directly with the factory, giving them their designs, and the factory is making them something based on that design. That might work. It might work with a small team. It might work if you have a well-skilled designer or a design assistant who can follow up on details, or if you have a really amazing factory who's really good at filling in the blanks and understanding how to make something. But factories, it depends on the type of factory, but they're not really equipped to interpret designs and figure out how to make them better. That's not really what most people pay them for. And they're not, generally the relationship they have with designers is not one of collaboration and problem solving. It's usually just they try to do exactly what is on the design image, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But they aren't always coming up with creative problem solves to make it better. They're just trying to do it quickly and cheaply because that's their job. The pressure that the factory has is to make it as cheap as possible, as quickly as possible. And those things are correlated, whereas design wants something beautiful that meets their design aesthetic. So you can understand how those things are not always aligned. So tech designers serve a lot of roles, and there's a lot of people that funnel into tech design. So let's say up here, whoops, that's not what I want. All right, so we have merchandisers. I'm just going to call them merchants. We have design. We also have like creative leads. So designers might be more oriented towards what type of top stitching. Hey, this dress should be, have a very flowy skirt. Whereas the creative head might be more overall thinking about the line and everything that goes into it. So here are merchandising, design, creative. And then down here, okay, so down here we have, let's say within the company you might have your production teams. And this might have different names in various different different companies. Say we were working on a brand side, so there might be sourcing, and they're going to work finding factories and fabrication and mills. You might also have various people involved with categorizing what type of garments you're importing so the tariffs can be correct. There's logistics. There's the people who are working with stores for communication and distribution. So there's a lot of pieces in here. There's people who are working on the website or with outside vendors. If the brand works with a wholesale vendor, let's say like Macy's, like a department store. And there's people at the brand who probably work with Macy's and work with getting them samples for the website, or they work on a catalog, or they work on those descriptions that go on the website and say, hey, this is made of jersey knit, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's all these teams. And tech design, all these people are feeding into garment, and this is the garment, and tech design is really the liaison. They're the liaison and the product specialist. So tech design is taking all of this information from up here. These are the creative people, merchants, design, creative heads, and they're outputting it to all of these areas, making sure that they're collaborating with the sourcing team. The sourcing team is finding them factories and fabrication. They're making sure that the style that they're working on is in line with what is being communicated on the website, and maybe with stores. Maybe there's something special about this style that needs to be communicated to outside people, like, how do you care for this? You need to let customers know that this is dry clean only, but if you wash it, you can wash it, but it will shrink a little bit. These are the things that tech design is really in charge of. They need to understand the product inside and out. Every spec, every size, every how you care for it, and they're connecting all these pieces together. And then even further than that, which makes their job even more confusing, is they are the primary communicators for that style to the factory. So they are the last ones, tech design, they're the last ones to touch a style before it goes to the factory. And once it's at the factory, then they make it and they ship it out. And all these production teams, logistics, these people are oversee that portion of it. But if there's an issue, if there's a QC issue, if there's something that happens in production, something shrinks more, or etc., a trim is misused, tech design has to step in and help, often is asked to step in and help problem solve, because they are the style specialist and they should know that style inside and out, and so they should be able to help facilitate what a good solution to the issue is. So that is the vital important role that tech designers play. If you don't have tech designers, basically you just have all of these people who are giving information to the factory. And the factory, factories are busy. They're working fast. They're trying to make, factories are not often paid a lot of money per garment. The make of a garment is actually only a portion of what it costs. Often a lot of what goes into a garment manufacturing cost is fabrication, shipping, logistics. A lot of those things also wholesale markup. So a brand might make a garment, a pair of pants for a certain cost, and then they sell it to, let's say, Macy's, and Macy's doubles that cost in order to make something for themselves. So what the factory makes is not a ton, and because of that, their job, they're not usually, there are some factories that are amazing, but in general, their primary role is not usually one of communicating with all these different people. It can be overwhelming for them. They're getting all this information and they're trying to funnel it into a single garment. And that's where mistakes can happen if you don't have someone who is really on top of each product and on top of each size, on top of the grading, and knowing what should go into each style so that the factory has a very clear vision of what their goal is. Okay, so let's talk about the major roles that tech design have. Okay, so number one, a tech designer creates a tech pack. So the tech pack is a booklet. It's basically like a style manual, a style manual, and it has a bunch of things in it. Number one, it's going to have a sketch, a technical sketch, and maybe up-close images of what exactly that construction should be. And when you think about tech designers are primarily working with overseas factories, people who don't speak English as their first language generally. And so tech designers need to be really good at communication and really good at communicating with images. So you can write everything out in words, but if you really want someone to understand the information and understand it quickly, visuals are the name of the game. So if you want to become a good tech designer, you need to get good at Adobe Illustrator and good at Photoshop. Because one thing you might need to do is take a photo, adjust it so you can really see all of those seams, stitch details, etc., and then include that in your tech pack. So number two in the tech pack, you're going to have construction. And again, sometimes construction is done in a very visual way. So there might be a garment and then just arrows pointing to how everything is made. And if you're interested in this, okay, so I just Googled tech pack construction, and here's what came up. And these are some great images here. There's so much out there on Google. If you just want to Google some things, if you know what you're looking for, you can really get a lot of information. Here's a great example. Here is her technical sketch, and here are some arrows pointing to construction. I really love this type of construction because it's very visual and these words align with where the arrows are pointed. As someone who's worked on the factory side, when words are written separately from the image, even if you speak English as a first language, it can be very difficult to understand. So having arrows, having it be clear and free of extraneous words is very helpful. Here's another one. They're using numbers and then corresponding numbers. I don't love this. I'd rather have the words on the page and just have it take a few more pages, but that's just me. Here's another one that's done in that same manner. So that gives you an idea there. So other things that are in that tech pack. So you have bill of materials. Whoops. People call this a BOM or bill of materials. Bill of materials is going to be a list of everything that's in the garment, including fabrication and trims. All right, I'm going to try Googling bill of materials and see what comes up. Bill of materials. Images. So here we go. Here's a great example. So you can see this one it's a little bit, I wonder if it'll show us up closely. So this one is pulled from some sort of PLM system, but let's just talk in case it's like an Illustrator an Excel document. Here's one. This one, I like this. I like to keep it simple. I'm not a super fan of complicated PLM product management systems. That's just me. All right, so here we go. And see, this is for a window. So this is true in manufacturing in general, but I'm speaking about apparel specifically. So you might have a part code, you're going to have a description. So let's say this is the main fabrication. You might have more information here. It might say product cost per yard. It might say fabrication information, like where the mill is, where the fabric comes from, what the fabric content is. Is it cotton, linen, jersey, etc. You will have zippers and zipper lengths. So this is a bill of materials. Tech design might not be responsible for creating and maintaining it, but they are responsible for ensuring that it's accurate. So your job as a tech designer is to make sure that this manual is is very easy to use, and someone can look at it and get all the information they need to make the garment. So another important thing, this is a really important tech designer thing, is the POM page, or the point of measurement page. So again, the point of measurement page, I'm going to drag in my trusty Google again, point of measurement page. Let's look at images. Okay, so a point of measure, you're going to have a description of what the measurement is. Let's say neck width, front neck drop, back neck drop, trims, chest width, all that stuff. You're going to have tolerance. Usually these things are standard for your company for neck width, front neck drop, back neck drop, and they're usually also related to the sizing. So you don't want your tolerance to be more than the difference between one size and another size, because then you might have a garment with the same neck drop, or the same neck width in two different sizes, which is not ideal. And sorry, I didn't explain tolerance, but that's the difference that the garment can be. So in production, it's very difficult actually to control garments in production, especially things that are washed, garment dyed, knits, things that are unstable. And so this is giving you a range. The neck width, maybe it's supposed to be 7.5 inches, but it can come in at 7 1/4 or 7 3/8, and the brand will still accept it at that width. Let's see here. See if we can see some more examples of this. The other important part of a point of measurement page is the graded spec page. Usually kind of the same thing, but let's just show you what that is. So grading is going to be the breakdown of sizes, and grading is saying, so you might fit on a size medium, say, but grading is going to specify the increments between one size and another size. That is being slow, but here we go. This is a good one. Ooh, well, this person, you can purchase them. That's very interesting. Okay, so that's just a basic tech back. Here is a graded spec page, and you can see here's the base size. This is an 8/9 for this person, and then on either direction, this one goes smaller, -1/4. This is very unusual. This is not how I would normally set up grading. You can see it's cumulative. Usually this number is related to the previous number. So let's find another. I don't like that one. Not how I would typically do it. No. If you know what you're looking for, there is a lot of information out there, though. Okay. All right, so let's say we had a small, an extra small, extra small, a medium, large, extra large, and you have neck width. So on your small, let's say that's your base size, let's say it's 7.5. Your graded spec page is going to say how much it's going to change. So it's going to go smaller by 1/4 inch as we go down in sizes, another 1/4 inch, and larger by 1/4 inch per size. And what that means is that this size, this is going to be the actual measurement. So this size would be 7.5, and this size would be 7 3/4, and this size will be 8, and this size will be 8 1/4. So you can see that each time it's adding that increment on. So this is going to be 7 1/4, this is going to be 7. There we go. So that is your graded spec page. Sometimes you show increments and sometimes you show actual measurements, but when I look at a graded spec page, I usually look at just the increments, because this is how it's grading, and this is the way you want to think about it, is how much the garment is changing per size. This is a really important thing to know and understand as a tech designer. All right, so what else should you know as a tech designer? Here are other things that are in the, talked about POM pages. So another thing is label placement and application. So within a brand, you might have several different types of labels. For some fabrications, you might use a lighter weight label. For heavier fabrications, maybe a heavier label. For a coat, you might have different labels. And you also want to think about care content labels. What is an accessible placement for that care content that's also not irritating to the consumer? So you have to think about all of those things and also how to apply it. Is it going to stitch through to the exterior? Is it going to just only be to that interior ply? Let's say you have a lining and then it doesn't show through. These are all important parts of your job and to really understand your job, so you should know that inside and out. And lastly, you're going to write comments. And let me see if I can show you an example of some comments. Okay, so apparel comments. No, tech designer comments. Not a lot of things here, but basically comments are going to be your response to a fitting. So as a tech designer, you have a fitting, and once you're done with that fitting, you're going to write up a summary of what the next steps are for that style. So you're going to say what happened, what was the date, who tried it on, who was there, and then you're going to say these are the major issues. The neck width was too small, or maybe it met spec, but maybe it was hard to put on. Small, hard to put on. So and then maybe the waistline isn't even. Maybe shearing is too much. It'll be a combination of both design feedback, like this is not matching the image of what they thought it would be, and technical feedback, you giving them comments about how they perform technically. And to be honest, most factories are trying hard. I think there's a feeling like you need to put pressure on your factories to work harder. I've never seen a factory that wasn't working hard, but I think it's about employing them to help you solve a problem. So if a neckline isn't looking good because it's very wavy, because the fabrication is very stretchy, then you need to go out and say to your factory, hey, the neck didn't look good. How can we make it look better? Do you have ideas? What can we do? Do we need to change the neck rib quality, or do we need to make it self? What can we do to fix that issue? Employing your factory to help you with those issues are going to go a long ways for you as a tech designer. But that's the major gist of it. And you're also in comments are going to use photos of the fitting, and you might draw on the photos using Illustrator to show the revisions that you want the factory to make. Now, often in the tech designing role, you're not usually doing pattern making. Pattern making is going to lay with the factory. But as a good tech designer, you need to oversee the pattern corrections. So you need to tell them if a sleeve isn't fitting right on the body, you need to show a screenshot of that pattern and then tell them how to correct it. Let's say you want more fullness in the front sleeve cap, or you want the cap to be 3/8 higher. You need to specify that information, because the factory, they didn't get to be at the fitting. They don't know what kind of fit comments you're going to have, and they might not even have a mannequin that's the same size as your fit model. So they might be great pattern makers, but pattern making is all relative to the body that the garment is going on. So you do need to help them understand how to make that garment fit someone well. Okay, so those are the things in a tech pack. And that's number one when we talk about what's important as a tech designer. Number two, you're going to be running fittings. And when you run fittings, you're in charge of driving the conversation and of knowing everything about the garment that you can and asking the right questions. So I think this is actually a really tricky role that is sometimes... I think people know that it's important, but it's harder than it looks. You need to do prep work. So not only do you need to measure your garment and review it, you need to know from the outset what you already anticipate from a technical perspective, what you want to improve on the garment. Like maybe the execution of the lining isn't looking good. etc. But you also need to understand the designer's image. So what if the design wanted it to be really lightweight and flowy and it's just not looking that way because of the fusible? You need to go in knowing, hey, I know that this was your vision. This is what you said when you gave me the sketch. It's not matching that. Let's talk about some solutions. And past that, you should be coming up with solutions. But you need to do it in a gentle way. You shouldn't be saying, I think we should do this. What you need to say is to designers, to merchandisers, to the creative heads, I see that it's not matching your design image. Here's some ideas I have. What would you think about them? You need to make it very open-ended because designers, creative heads, they want to be driving the direction of the style. And so your job there is to facilitate problem solving and to help draw out their reaction if it's matching their designer's vision. Some designers are really great at giving feedback and some are less great. And you need to learn to work with people, to ask them the right questions, to draw out of them the information that you need without stepping on toes, without giving too much personal opinion or feedback, because your job is really a facilitator and a liaison and less of an opinion maker, if that makes sense. Unless you have a great relationship with your designer and they want your feedback, if someone asks you for your feedback, but still always take a stance of I'm here to help make this garment be the best that it can be, and ultimately what that is something that's matching the designer's vision. All right, so those are the two major things that I think, but here are the skill sets that I think you need to have as a good tech designer. So of course you need to be good at drawing and communicating visually. So this means using Illustrator, Photoshop, maybe even hand drawing. If you're not good at those skills, there are lots of places you can learn them, lots of online tutorials. There's things like Skillshare. There's motif.org that's run by a mannequin company called Alvanon. They have a lot of classes that are really aimed at garment manufacturing, tech designers, pattern makers, so a great place to check it out. And there's YouTube tutorials all over the place. So lots of stuff you can learn just from your own computer. You don't have to go anywhere, but there's also a lot of classes. There's online classes at FIT, at various different places. So you check that out, or you can look at your local community college. I actually took some drawing classes from my community college that were really helpful in my career and making me better at being a visual communicator. Another skill you're going to need is pattern making. Pattern making is a hard skill to learn on your own, I would say. And in my experience, pattern making books are a great start. It's a good way to get an intro in it, but a lot of those books are not geared towards newer fabrications, cut and sew knits, compression fabrics. Stuff like that can be trickier to learn about. And the way I would recommend, again, check out motif.org. Check out Skillshare for pattern making. There's lots of people who share that information there. YouTube also has some pattern making information, not as much, I find. Probably Motif would be a good place to start. And at the end of it, what I would say is look at your own clothes. Take them apart, figure out what they're made of, look at care content labels, figure out what are your clothes made out of, where do they come from, who's making them, what's this factory, look up factories, apparel manufacturers, try to find out how your clothes are made, and then you can take the shapes of your own clothes and make your own pattern and then try to fit it on yourself. It's a really great way to learn. It's the way I started out, is just by making stuff for myself. And a lot of people I know who are pattern makers continue to learn by making themselves things, and then they understand how 2D shapes become 3D shapes. That's a really challenging part of pattern making, especially when you're working with fabrics that are stretchy. That adds a level of kind of confusion to the matter. Another major skill that you will need is people skills. As I said, a major job you have as a tech designer is being a good communicator, of facilitating conversation and being likable. You really want everyone at the brand that you work at to be on your side. You want people to see you as smart, as efficient, as a good listener. People really like to be listened to. So if you want to improve on your people skills, the best way to do it is be a better listener. Another way that you can improve on your people skills is there's tons of classes, people who present on this on YouTube or on Skillshare. There's also books about how to become better at talking to different people. There's the famous one, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's an old book, but it's actually still true today. I think humanity hasn't changed that much, and at the gist of it, what everybody wants is to be heard. And if you want to gain people's trust, learn to be a good listener, learn to ask people questions about themselves, about the work that they're doing, and gain that trust, so that when you're in a fitting, people are already on your side and they want to work with you. If they don't see you as an ally, they're going to see you as someone who's in their way. And the reason I say that is there's a lot of conflicts in the fashion world, and the conflict comes from design wants something, but then it costs a certain cost, and maybe it also is difficult to make. So designers are going to be upset if their vision can't be made for the cost, and as a result, they have to degrade that vision. And so as a tech designer, your goal is to try to figure out how can we maintain that designer's vision and make it easier to make for the factory and still make the cost that we're supposed to hit. And that's a really hard challenge to do, and designers will kind of resent a tech designer who just says no to saying things. You want to work with them to make their image happen, or they're going to start trying to, they're going to fight with you on things, because of course from their perspective they also want the product to be good, and they might see you as a problem in making the product look good. So you want them to see you as part of the solution, as someone who's helping them achieve the look that they're looking for, and also making it something that is within the cost and easy to make, because that will mean that their garment gets made and sold and sells well, and then that bodes well for them too. So you really want to get people to be on your side, and that all comes down to people skills, lots of people skills. So definitely work on that. So those are the 3 major skills I would say you need. And I hope this video has been helpful for those of you out there who are interested in tech design, or maybe you're just interested in fashion and how fashion works. So please leave me a comment below if you enjoyed this video, or you have further questions, or you have video topics you'd like me to cover in the future. I would be happy to share them. All right, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video.